Hey Jeff, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Steve?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Good.
I'm I'm the whole value of planning thing. I probably should talk to you before I write something up, but it's not due until Wednesday, so I can send you a draft and look at it. But
Okay.
I think we need to look at this as a well, I mean it's a different category from what we're doing. Um, my first reaction was, well, they just don't know what we're doing. Well, they know what we're doing, and that's not what they want to do. And
Yeah, that's
they
kind
don't
of
have
where
the
I was at too.
capacity to do what we're doing.
Hmm.
So it's more like I wish I had I'm not sure I could have a tape or a transcript of the meeting, but they said at some point, I swear to God, they said this. It's going to be like jumping out of a cake.
Yeah, they did something like that. Yeah.
The what they're going to do is the cake, and then we're going to jump out of it after they're done. I mean that kind of. So yeah, we even joked on it. It said, "I'm not going to jump out of that cake. I need. I'm too old." But yeah, the, I, it was like that. So um, I don't think there was. I think I was probably a little more testy than I should have been, but I think everything is fine now. It's just it's kind of like if only they knew, and then I figured out, well, they do know. And part of it, hi Stephanie, we're talking about the Divisions Council has a value of planning initiative, which I figured and Jeff figured would play right into what we're doing to make planners more valuable. But um, they're looking at it more as make planning more widely known and sort of the value of the virtue of planning, if you will, more than the tangible value of it. I mean, I said something about being mercenary, and I think I think we're entitled to be mercenary, but that's not the way they want to present this. Put it that way. But
Well,
I don't want planners to go broke. That's what Jeff's going to talk about, right?
well, and I think they benefited from it too. I just don't think they understood that by portraying it more than just it takes a planner, but like what is the true value of a planner? Then what does that mean to your electeds if you're on the public sector side, to your city administrators? I mean, I think that's where we can go back to them and say, look, here's the value that we're bringing. Here's why we have a APA and a member organization. It's to enhance our profession and to protect our profession from, and Steve, you say it great with like you don't hire a plumber that's not bonded, right? So why do you hire a planner that just because they got a geography degree 4 years ago and now they say they're a planner, therefore they're a planner, but because they have a lower salary requirement than somebody who's AICP. Oh, are you still there?
Yeah,
No.
and
What I
I
find in my practice, it's I've been at this for 10 years now. And so I've got some cycled through repeat customers, repeat clients.
Hmm.
And I worked really hard with them to get certain things done. And then some of them wandered away. And, well, we could do that for ourselves. And one company I worked with, they did put time and effort into training somebody to do that. And she was bright and she could do it. But eventually it fell apart and they suffered because their projects didn't get approved. When I handled them, everything went through. So now they're back going, gee, Steph, we should have stuck with you. And that's happened a couple of times. They all think they can do this, but when it comes right down to it, they have a hard time. And you have to take
yeah
a knock or two before you understand the value of what we do for them.
Yeah.
yeah I who was that guy? Andy Rooney. he was talking about writers and why writers can't make a living as writers. And he said, anyone can write, but only a dentist can fill a tooth. I mean, and I think planning is kind of it's vague enough to where people think they can do it. And I had a client a couple of years ago, and he said, "Well, I never hired a planner before, and I've come this far. You know, why do I need a planner now?" This guy, he wanted to put a gas station right in the middle of a floodplain. And I said, "Well, I said, you can't argue with water." And he said, "You got to find a different way of expressing yourself because everything you say to me makes me mad." I mean, that was,
I tell them that's my job sometimes. I'm here to lead you through a decision-making process. And there are numerous off-ramps. If we get started on a project and it's not going to be feasible for you, or this is not where you want to go, part of what I do is present you with reasonable off-ramps where you can make the decision that this isn't worth your while.
yeah, well, this guy made a
I don't think
decision and I was the off ramp. I mean, he did, he just said, "Well, I'll pay you up, just leave me alone." And what I found out was that he did that to everybody. He did that to the engineer, he did that to the marketing guy, and he's still got this crappy little RV park, you know, and it's not going anywhere. But he had all these grand designs. It was going to be the only thing for this, the only thing for that, and it just I don't know. You got to choose your clients. I think that's one of the. I'm sure that Jeff is going to get into that. But were you on the webinar? Was anybody on this call so far? I mean, we're not ready to start yet on the risk management guidelines webinar.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought that was it spoke to the I think that really got to the heart of it, and not only should a planner be insured, but the planner has to project a certain amount of stability. And if you get sued out of business, that's the main thing I got out of it was that you gotta pick your clients. The this is Jeff's, but that's my the sometimes you just pick a client because you have a bill to pay or something like that. But you got to be choosier than that. That's all I can say.
How much interaction do you guys typically have with someone before you enter into a formal client relationship? Do you get calls from people saying, I have this project, what can you tell me? And then they can't quite make up their mind whether or not they want to hire you or not. Does that happen?
I have some of those
Jeff.
too. I mean, I have some of those, and then I have some where I've worked with them for multiple years, where I consider myself their trusted advisor. But then I have some that hear about me from those others or from other consultants. They're like, "Oh, you need to call Jeff and talk to him about that." And then they're like, maybe the clerk or the city administrator is fully on board, but the mayor and city council are kind of like, "I don't know, should we pay good money for this?" It just and they understand when they hire an architect, they get a set of plans, or they hire an engineer, they get a set of plans, they get something tangible. But then when they hire me and I'm helping them through zoning administration, they're like, they're not sure why. And then now I've got a client who wasn't sure if they should hire me, and then they didn't, and they did it on their own, and now they're in a lawsuit with the developer, and they're like, "Okay, we need you back now." We understand what we didn't know. We stepped in and we actually figured this out the hard way. So there are some of those hard lessons learned. But yeah, sometimes it's weird when you have clients and then sometimes when I talk to them and you talk to the administrator, they say one thing, the clerk says another thing, the mayor says another thing. That's usually when I'm saying, okay, why don't you call client X or consultant X, because I'm too busy and I can't take you on right now. When they can't figure out what they want and then they're all on a different page, you just know that that's going to be a nightmare client and not going to be worth it.
Yeah, I would say to be very skeptical of referrals. I mean, if XYZ firm or someone you know at a large firm calls you up and says, here's somebody that you might want to work with, um, you're kind of like sloppy seconds, and you should be wary of the clients that were what do you call it, deferred by someone else. I would say sometimes you can do it. I mean, depending on why the other firm turned it down, but sometimes they're just not good people to work with, and they don't know you except through this other firm or someone at that firm.
Well, I've had an experience actually with two referrals early on. One down near Bakersfield, they were referred to somebody that I had worked out with when I was with the county. Sounded like a great project. The person who did the referring couldn't help them because he was overloaded at the time. Talked to the guy, and he said, "Okay, we'll be in touch." Haven't heard from him since. Had another one that was referred to me by another individual who was also booked solid and have had what I would call a great working relationship with the referred individual, to the point where I've actually done a couple projects for them. So it's kind of, to me, it's a hit and miss, depending on on the client or the potential client itself. So,
Um, Corey, Vince asked me to introduce Jeff because he has a medical appointment. He may not be here when the conversation starts. Do you think should we get started with who we have? It's almost 5 after. We can go ahead with that.
Yeah.
You're
Or
mute.
you're on
Okay.
mute.
Yeah, I would go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, it just started to rain here, so might have a quieter weekend than I was planning. I'm glad not to have to go outside. Um, okay, this topic here is how to become a sole proprietor, and Jeff Ray is a sole proprietor, and a year ago he was not. He was with an engineering firm, and it's not only that, but only a few months ago, Jeff took my place as the chair of the private practice division. So Jeff's going to talk about what he wished he knew a year ago in relation to what he knows now, and some tips on setting up a small private practice. So, Jeff, take it away.
Sure. Can I take control of the screen, Steve? I have a little quick PowerPoint that I'll go through, and then we can get to some Q&A.
Okay. Let's see here. Sorry. How do I do this?
You should be able to just do it, Jeff. You should have that control. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see here. All right. Can you see that?
No.
Nope. All right. Looks like my screen's
How do I
backwards.
make him a co-host? Corey, can you make Jeff a co-host? I think that's what you got to do.
Captions. Host tools. Is that where I'm going to need to go? Share screen.
Yeah. At the bottom of your screen should be this share option.
Just looking for that.
Mine's in the bottom center.
Oh, here we go. Yep. Okay. All right. There we go.
Oh, good.
All right. Okay. Is that open? I can't see what it is.
Yeah, this
There
is
it-
your screen.
Yeah,
So
we
you
can
need
see
to,
your
Do you see me or do you
slide
see
decks.
you do see my slide deck?
Yeah,
Okay. Is it the whole slide deck or is it the presentation mode?
this
it's
is
the
not
whole
in
slide deck.
presentation mode.
All right. How's that?
That should.
We
All right,
there we now we see the
now you're
now we
going.
see you're
All
good.
right. Okay. Great. Now I gotta my notes went away to the other screen. All right. Okay. Great. Um, all right. Well, all right. Well, thanks for everybody. Thanks, Steve, for introducing me again. My name is Jeff Ray. I'm in Omaha, Nebraska, and I am a sole proprietor. So I started Ray Planning Solutions last September. So it's very fresh for me. And can everybody see that, or do you see my notes too?
You just see the title
You just see
screen.
the presentation? Okay. All right. My it's not presenting the way I want to see it, so I can't see what I'm actually presenting. All
Ooh,
right. There we go. So real quick, I want to start with why I started my own business, how I started, and then what are those lessons that I learned. And so, why I started my own business is really um, the main impetus of this. So this graphic here is actually what my youngest daughter did when she was a second grader when she drew a picture of what Daddy does. So I'm very proud of this. Her name's Olivia, and she goes by Liv, and we call this the Liv City. So there's some little irony in that. Um, and then, so the main reasons that I started my own company really was to create more flexibility in my schedule. And so the picture there is my 1-year-old granddaughter, which is great if you all are ever get to that point and you need some of that flexibility in your schedule. And she lives in Denver. My wife's architectural firm has an office in Denver, so she is often there. But I was not able usually to participate with those trips when she went out for her board meetings to go out and see our daughter and son-in-law and now our granddaughter. So I wanted some of that. So that was a huge desire of mine. How do I create more flexibility with my schedule and the timing? How do I work more directly with communities as opposed to the A&E firm that I was working with? I was very grateful for the time I had there. I also wanted to work on projects that I wanted to work on instead of them telling me, hey, go work on this project, but it's a 3-hour drive away. And then so I would go there for an hour or 2-hour meeting, and that was 8 hours. And it just felt very inefficient to have to travel and do those. And ultimately, it led to a large engineering project, so it was economically beneficial for the A&E firm, but not really for me as a planner. It wasn't that rewarding, and it really just kind of led to other work within the firm and not necessarily for what I wanted to do. It also created just some financial and professional independence so I could do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. And most importantly, was a timely professional opportunity. Um, so here's some of the reasons too of like why I did not start Ray Planning Solutions. I had a very strong relationship with my coworkers, with my senior management. I consider myself a senior manager there, and that's probably one of the reasons why it even helped me to be able to launch this and to be successful coming out day one was their support behind doing that. I also just wanted to I had exciting projects. I had great clients. I didn't want to leave my clients. I didn't want to leave my coworkers. I had some of those, and I felt like I was fairly compensated. So I hear this from other people of reasons why they left. They're disgruntled. They don't get the pay they want. I didn't have any of those situations, so I really didn't have those types of reasons to leave, including health insurance opportunities. My wife was able to cover all of that, so I was fine with that. But I did leave. And so here's the process that I went through. I weighed what the risks and the rewards were, did some analysis on all that. and I had an opportunity that was there that was pushing me forward to do that. So I created a business plan and ultimately created Ray Planning Solutions out of this. So the risks and rewards that I looked at were really this. And when it was my desire to work more directly with the communities instead of via an engineering firm, opportunity to choose those meaningful projects. I didn't really care about doing an annexation study that was simply just going to lead to a power or a role of increasing roads and water and sewer for an engineering project. And it was not necessarily, professionally fulfilling for me to do those. I wanted to do something where I was really changing the community and I could see those tangible results, and I was working with the people and so forth that I cared about. So some of the risks then were like, okay, I don't have any formal business training like many of you. I have an undergraduate in architecture and a master's in community regional planning. I took zero marketing classes, zero finance classes, zero accounting classes. I had no idea what I was really doing other than what I had learned on the job training of being a project manager and doing some of those things. There's a lot of uncertainty too that went along with that. I have three adult children. One's out of college and married, and obviously with a granddaughter there. He's a senior in college, and one's a sophomore in college. So I had some financial obligations to them and to my wife, and to figure out what I was going to do with that. And I didn't really know, like, what do I do? What do I know that I knew enough to know that there were things that I didn't know. So I didn't know how to ask those questions or even know what questions to ask or who to ask them of. There was liability and insurance costs that were out there. I knew that there was going to be some risks, but I didn't know how to limit them or what the opportunity was to potentially limit them. And then I had to balance, income versus, personal obligations. I'm as Steve mentioned, the chair now of the private practice division. I've been involved in the chapters. I'm involved in lots of other things outside of that. How much more time was this going to take? Was it going to eat into that? And can I actually do this? So I weighed all that. I decided I think the risks outweigh the reward, or the rewards outweigh the risks. And then said, so why now? So the opportunity came along. Really, it was and I really was not even looking for this. The city of Fremont, which is a 25,000 person community just outside of Omaha, who I had previously worked for, called and said, "Hey, our planning director is resigning. We need somebody on an interim basis, 16 to 20 hours a week. Would you be interested in being that?" So I took that to our senior board and went through our process in the A&E form. And basically, they came back to me and said, we have to tell the city of Fremont no, because we have too many financial conflicts of interest with you being a shareholder and the projects that we have there on the engineering and architectural side. And that's when I got a little bit bold, because I had done some of my research already. And I said, well, what does it look like if I'm not a direct employee here anymore, but I consult back to you? And they said, well, that's an interesting concept. We've never thought about that. Let's think about that and see how that works. And ultimately they came back and they said, I think that's a win-win for everybody. And that was really the big thing that started the catalyst for me and pushed everything across the line. Because I already knew then I had a guaranteed 60 to 20 hours a week for the first 3 months. And then I would just have to build on it from there. So I knew financially I had something to build upon, and I didn't have to look, where's that first dollar actually coming from? And my wife was very supportive and encouraged about it. She liked the flexibility. Obviously, getting to Denver with her is great, but just the ability to be my own boss and decide the projects that I really wanted to work on and do. So some of the resources, when I was trying to answer some of these questions, these are the three main ones that I really had. And I can't say enough about the new private practice handbook that all the members of the private practice division get a copy of. I was unaware of it when I became a member. but it was new, and I started looking at it, and it was great. I probably could have found all of those answers on the internet, but they would have been generic for starting whatever kind of other firm you were trying to do, a construction business or something like that. But this allowed me to really go through this page by page, look at it from a pure planner's perspective, and say, this is how I can do this. These are the things I need to look at. These are the things I should be aware of. These are some risks. These are resources for me. So that was great. Then family and friends. My son, who's a senior at the University of Nebraska in business and accounting and computer science, was great help in setting me up on some things. And I learned that I don't really use AI. I use an AI virtual assistant. And AI is really when somebody is being replaced by a computer software program or something, and I just use the virtual assistant. So that was good to know that on that side, he helped me on the accounting side of what I needed to do and not do, and how I could possibly do some of those things. And then my youngest is in marketing and sales, so she helped me on establishing the names, and I came up with a whole list and different logos and all of those types of things and colors, and they were all very helpful in doing that. I had a friend that's a lawyer and a friend that's an accountant, and some engineering friends that had recently set up their own businesses, and they were great help on doing that. Also, the Small Business Administration on the internet was able to read a lot of resources there, and that was very helpful too. So ultimately, I created my business plan. And the last thing I did was create the summary, which is interesting because every time you look at it, it tells you that's the first thing you need. But I did everything on there and then dropped it into Copilot with Microsoft and said, create a summary. And I got 3 sentences out of it, and it's perfect for my summary to utilize. Really, just my subscription was I was going to be a professional planning consultant. Had to figure out what that meant. How do I narrow that down? Looking into the market, who else was doing this? Are there large firms doing it? Are there other firms doing it? Are there other individuals doing it? Ironically, I really determined that it was pretty wide open. Like there's not a lot of competition out there for me. So it looked like it was going to be a pretty good opportunity. I also looked at like, okay, if there is somebody else that decides to do the same thing in a similar timing as me, what does that mean? Would they take a whole bunch of my market share or so forth? And did some analysis on that side to determine that there is more than adequate enough for 2 or 3 individuals working in my space to cover the geography that I do and the footprint in eastern Nebraska. And the organization and management, I'd learned early in my career when I was an Army reservist that I did not really enjoy managing people. So I set this out that I was going to be a sole proprietor and I was going to stay a sole proprietor. I don't want to hire people and expand, create a business, and then try to figure out how to sell it later on. That was not my intent at all. So that made it a lot easier to really focus on that side of it. And then those services that I was going to offer were really on the land development and entitlements and the zoning administration type piece, where I work directly for municipalities and process things on their side and assist planning commissions. And then I have some niche studies that I do in regards to housing and use of tax increment financing under the Nebraska Community Development Law. So those were great, and it gave me a pretty good opportunity to really focus on doing what I wanted to do and just do those things really well. And it also still helps me when I have another client maybe that calls and says, "Hey, we want you to do a comprehensive plan or an annexation study or something like that." And I'm like, that's probably not me. That's probably somebody else. It really helps me focus on that's where I want to be and that's where I want to work. So I'm just going to stick with what I know and what I do well, and because I know that, that's what I'm going to do. Then I did some financial projections and looked at it. How do I do this? Do I charge hourly? Do I charge lump sum? Here again, the handbook was really helpful for me to figure out what should my hourly rate be. It's substantially less than what my previous A&E firm charged, which is probably beneficial because I had about 5 clients that I previously worked with that I was the only one at the A&E firm that worked with them. So the A&E firm was amenable to allowing them to just walk away from them and to join me. So coming out of the gate, I had 6 clients day one, which was a huge benefit to start off, and it wasn't as worrisome as it probably should. Well, it shouldn't have been as worrisome as it was. I was still concerned, where is this really going to go and how am I actually going to get there? Then look at funding, and fortunately I was far enough into my career where I didn't have huge financial burdens and a young growing family or something, and a lot of debt that I needed to be paying off. So I had been able to figure out that I could be pretty lean for 6 to 12 months, and it would not impact us as a family. So that was great, and we had a diversified income the way I was. So I didn't have to go out and try to sell my business plan to a banker, which I know I have an engineering firm, and engineering friend who did that and created his own firm, and he kind of had to do that, and it was a very stressful period for him to try to get a small business loan and go that direction. So some of those financial considerations, this is probably where I spent the most of my time, was what are my startup costs going to be? And how am I going to handle those? The handbook here again was very helpful. Looked at my legal costs to set up my LLC. What is that going to be? Do I need contract templates? How do I set those up? How do they work? How do I protect myself and limit those risks? What are my accounting and tax responsibilities, and when do I pay those? How much do I pay? Those were all important things to look at, as well as now that I'm a sole proprietor, what do I need for a computer? Do I need a laptop? Do I need an iPad? Do I need more things? Do I need another cell phone? All of those kinds of things, and try to answer all those questions, as well as the software that I would potentially use. Do I need GIS, or do I have the opportunity to contract with other people that have those particular skills and not have to do all of those types of things? I did hire a friend that does website design and logo design. That was probably the best $2,500 that I ever spent helping get that set up. And I didn't have to worry about how do I create a website that's secure and not going to get hacked and everything like that. So that's all. It's still actually even in progress. Still, it's just working through that. But I've been very pleased with just doing that and being able to help my friend as well, and help each other go through that particular process. And then insurance. Insurance I thought was pretty easy. I just call up my insurance company and I'll get it added. And then I realized that I couldn't quite just do it that way. The USAA didn't cover that type of liability insurance, professional liability insurance, and started working through that process, and was really starting to become frustrated because I was unable to find insurance. That's when I really started working with Steve and some of the other things that were going on at the private practice division, in the exploration of trying to figure out risk management for planners, and came across the individual who's been working with the American Society American Society of Landscape Architects, and their insurance policy. And he was great help to me, and really helped explain how it worked and all of that, and helped get me a policy, even though it was substantially more, like 4 times more than what I had budgeted. He was able to help me through that process, and then help me to explain why it was so much more, and we can talk about that a little bit more offline. And then I did financial projections, like what is my low if I'm only 20 hours a week, if I'm 30 hours a week, if I'm more than that, what if I have some lump sum contracts in there? Just try to get some ranges of what my potential opportunities were, project them out, as well as project out workload over the next 6 months to determine, is there even capacity? Do I have capacity to do that, or would I be taking on too much and not be able to fulfill those obligations, which obviously would not really be an ethical thing for me to do as a planner and as an AICP planner, but just want to disappoint anybody as well. So I had to make sure that I was able to meet all of those obligations. I also created a plan B. You have the what ifs and the doubts that get back in the back of your head, and you're like, if this doesn't work or something crazy happens, what do I do? What if the revenue doesn't come in? As I mentioned earlier, I kind of had a little bit of a nest egg that I was able to say, okay, I got 6 months. That if I don't have any dollars come in for 6 months, I could still make this thing work. And then at that point, I'll figure out what else I would do. And there are still planning jobs, unlike when in 08 and 09, when I was working as a planner, and there weren't planning jobs anywhere, and you just really didn't know what you were going to do. And a lot of people even left the field. I also created a secondary marketing plan. So I had my primary targets that I was reaching out to, but I created a list of other developers and land use attorneys and other cities that would potentially need somebody that I could reach out to if I needed. So it gave me more comfort to know that those were particularly out there. And then probably the biggest thing was, like, if I get into this and find out I really don't like being my own boss, what do I do? And then I basically concluded that I could always go find another job. I could probably even go back to the same A&E firm that I was at, because I didn't burn any bridges there. I was able to leave with strong relationships intact, and I still consult back to them about 8 to 12 hours a week, the way it is now. So what I wish I knew if I had a crystal ball, which all of us planners wish we had a crystal ball, right? The communities all think we do for some reason. I wish I just had greater self-confidence when I first set this up, and I didn't doubt myself so much, and beat myself up, and was, a little bit worried about it, and really learned to just trust your family and friends. They were all very supportive and saying, hey, you can do this. This shouldn't be that hard for you. This is great. You've already got a list of communities that you have established strong relationships with, and they view you as as the trusted advisor. And so they were going to come with me. So coming out of the gate, I had many of those already there. And those risks were really much more manageable than I expected. There weren't a bunch of big surprises, which was really great. The liability insurance, as I mentioned, was a surprise, but it was still manageable, and I was able to do it, and it was more money than I expected, but I was able to get it, and I'm glad that I was able to get it. And now I'm going to take that experience and help the private practice division on the risk management piece, which is a big piece that we're trying to do at a bigger level. And overall, I'm just happy. My wife says I got more pep in my step, and so the rewards were much greater than I think that I'd even hoped for. It wasn't like I was down and depressed and hated my job the way I was. I think it just rejuvenated me and made me feel much more valuable. And I'm excited about every day and getting up and going to work, even if it's put slippers on and go to the basement. So as I reflect back on the last 6 months, I'm really thankful for the support of the family and the friends, and all the advice that they gave me. It was really great. And I was excited that I was able just to maintain those relationships with the existing communities, as well as to the previous employer, where it's great that I still get to pop in there, maybe one day or a week or every 2 weeks, see my friends. I was there for 14 years, so I had some pretty significant relationships there, and knew a lot of people, very personally, went to their kids' weddings and graduations and those types of things. And so still doing that. Still get together with many of them every once a month or so for coffee or lunch, and I'm excited to do that. And so far, all of the rewards have outweighed any of those risks that I had previously identified, and I'm really pleased with where I'm at. So with that, I'll take whatever questions anybody will potentially have, as we've got about a half an hour to move on.
Well, I've got a question off the top of my head. Um, how do you handle, do you have an office in your house, or do you go to an office? Do you rent an office? How
Yeah,
does that work?
I do both. So Mondays and Tuesdays, I typically go to the city of Fremont. That's that 16 to 20 hours a week. And then and that usually covers city council meetings as well as planning commission meetings. Um, and then the other 3 days, I'm either bouncing around, going to other cities and clients' offices. I do work for a couple private developers as well. But like right now, I'm sitting in my basement, in my little office area that's set up and very comfortable. It's a walkout basement, so I got natural light. The dogs are here to keep me company, and it's worked out really well.
Good. Well, Vince is on the call now, but I guess either of us can ask for questions from other people. I want to point out that we've got Alara on the call, and I was going through my files, and I found a PowerPoint that Alara gave on running a business, setting up a business, and I guess it was for the APA chapter conference when it was here in Jacksonville. But I'd like to, maybe you could chime in sometime, or we could get you to talk about that too. There are so many aspects of being in business as a planner that planners just don't know. And I think sometimes they don't want to acknowledge that those skills are important. That's my little soapbox, I guess, for the day. So anyway, I don't want to get off on it. I could talk for a long time, and I don't want to.
I think going through the process was also beneficial for me in relating to my clients of like, here's why my hourly rate is what it is. I've got 40% of that automatically comes off the top. Is just I set aside for tax purposes and for business sponsorships and those types of things. So I'm not seeing 100% of what that fee actually is. I'm only going to see 60% of it at the most, and I still have other expenses beyond that. And my E&O insurance, my liability insurance, all of those other things come into that, as well as mileage and traveling within my vehicle because I have to go out to these communities often. Obviously, computer service and internet service and cell phone service and all of those expenses that need to come out of those things, as well as copies and some of that. So I think taking a look at it from a pure perspective of what are all of those other little costs that can add up to a pretty substantial amount of dollars, and why they need to be included in that hourly rate was helpful for me to take that comprehensive look and be able to explain to somebody like, wow, like you're making a ton of money, and you're like, well, not really. There's a lot of expenses that come out of that, and I don't get to keep 100% of that.
So, but not health insurance.
No, I'm unfortunate that my wife's firm covers health insurance for us and the family. I did previously do that, but we basically just switched that over when I no longer covered the health insurance. I did look briefly into what's out there on the open market, and it wasn't too much different. It was going to be more, and for similar coverage. But it wasn't going to be tremendously more. That was part of my plan B that I don't think I mentioned. I did look at like, okay, if something happened and her architectural firm closed, would we still have that opportunity, or would we be really in big trouble not finding health insurance if one of us or both of us weren't able to get that?
I've heard that concern from other planners in private practice. Getting health insurance is an issue. Stephanie, did you have your hand up there?
I did. I have a question about the driving. Do you charge the federal business rate for mileage to your clients, or do you do a deduction at tax time? How do you handle that issue?
I decided to do a deduction at tax time. Having been in both the public and the private sector, it always seemed a little bit like a nickel and dime to me when somebody's documenting their drive time. And sometimes I'm driving to one community and then on to another community and then on to another community before I actually get home. And I'm like, how do I parse all this out? It just seemed like kind of a headache to do. So in fact, I just downloaded a spreadsheet off of Excel that they had for mileage tracking, and it was very easy. You just mark down the date and the the time and the mileage and where you went, and put all those total miles in there. And I can't remember what the rate is, 70% or 70 cents or something like that. So I don't know. We'll see here in another month or so when I finalize my taxes, because it's kind of a crazy mess last year having multiple businesses. And we'll see how my taxes work out. But hopefully I was close in my estimate in my quarterly taxes that I paid, which I don't know. I guess it's probably a good thing. Everybody should know how much those taxes are that you actually pay. And when we're being prudent with local dollars that are all tax generated as well. So, Vince, you got a question?
Yeah, I had a question, follow-up question for you on this, and a question for Laura as well, and anybody who's really on the call who's working as a sole proprietor. So I'll start with that with Laura. Did you start your firm, the Planning Collaborative, coming from the private or the public sector? And was the Planning Collaborative a larger firm that kind of morphed into your company? I'm just curious.
So I started my firm in 2011, and it's always been just me. Now I have hired people over the years and currently have a student intern from FSU. I've had pretty good luck with student interns. In fact, I had one that was so wonderful that I hired her as a full-time employee. But they are direct employees, the interns are. They're not 1099. So it's easy for me to hire interns because as the work ebb and flows, if it gets too low, then I can always say, hey, intern, there's just not enough going on right now. It's not as hard as laying off an employee. So I love the use of the interns. I usually have enough work for a part-time person. They're usually about 20 hours, 15, 20 hours a week. But I created it. I created an LLC at the beginning, and then several years in, I also put it into an S-Corp. So I have both. I have an LLC and an S-Corp.
Okay.
And they're different. They're different things. The LLC is for liability. The S-Corp is for tax purposes. So you can have both. I have both.
Okay.
Another thing that I did recently that I hadn't in the past is a year ago, 15 months ago, the company purchased a car. So the car that I use is owned by the business, which allows me to deduct all of the expenses. It allowed me to deduct the cost of the car, and the taxes, the insurance, all of that are now deductible off of the business income. So I'm not paying taxes on that amount of income that the car's costing, if I'm explaining that right. So all my oil changes, all my gas, everything is deducted off of the business. Now I do have QuickBooks, and there is an app for QuickBooks that allows you to track your mileage. So you can, so I could, if I'm using the car for personal business, I can track the non-business out miles. But what I really try to do is if I'm doing something for the business and I need to stop at the grocery store on the way home, it's still the business miles. I'm just stopping on the way home. That makes sense.
No.
So I try to do that as much as I can. Or if I have to go to the post office, or if I have to go to the bank, or if I have to go meet a client, then I'll try to do something on the way home. So I don't really have that many personal miles on the vehicle. But yeah, so I think my biggest hurdle over the years has been the insurance because they don't always know how to classify you. And so it's actually getting more costly. I'm not loving that, but the insurance I think has been and with you, just as you, Jeff, I have USAA that didn't so my insurance is through USAA, but to another party. It's not a USAA insurance. It's Hartford. I'm with Hartford. That is my professional liability and my general liability insurance.
Laura, did you do the webinar on risk management guidelines? Were you on February 13th, 2 weeks ago?
No, not ringing a bell. This year?
Well, we did it was through the Ohio webcast series.
Oh, no.
It was last Friday or last.
No, I didn't.
It was two Fridays ago.
2 Fridays ago. Okay.
Friday. Yeah.
So
It was good.
Yeah. Well, and before I give up the floor, Brad commented that you weren't aware that we had the private practice handbook. I thought that everybody knows about the private handbook. I'm so immersed in it, but it's Corey can tell you exactly where to find it on the website, and it's downloadable once you get onto our webpage, and you have to log in as a APA member, and then I think your access to the private practice webpage is restricted to people who would belong to the division, and anyone in the division can download it. So even it's an exclusive member benefit, but you should have no trouble getting to it and downloading it. And it's very gratifying, as much effort as we've been putting into it, to hear Jeff say all those good things about the private practice handbook. It's handy. I mean, it's only that thick, if that.
That's about 60 pages or something, maybe total.
Yeah. So anyway, and we're going to blow it up with some additional content when we finish the risk management guidelines project. So stay tuned for that.
So going through the risk management side of it on the private practice project, as I will call it, was really interesting in talking with Henry on why a planner's liability insurance is so expensive, including, like, I compare it to, I have two friends that have sole proprietor civil engineering firms, and I'm like, it doesn't make sense to me that I'm paying twice what they're paying. I'm like, if I mess something up, it goes back to city council the next month or 2 months later, and we change the piece of paper. Okay, we delayed them, maybe 30, 60 days, but nobody really. I'm like, my friends mess something up. I'm like, somebody can really get hurt. Somebody can be killed. I'm like, they have much more liability than I do. And he's like, yeah, I get that. The problem is, the insurance industry knows exactly what a civil engineer does, and knows exactly what a electrical engineer does, and exactly what a structural engineer. But when you say planner, they don't really know. It's just this big, broad category for them. It's environmental planners, it's transportation planners, it's land use planners, it's housing planners, and every liability from every one of those roles as a planner, because we're so broad, all get thrown into that big bucket, and you get covered for all of them, even though you only practice in a very narrow area. So that's why planning liability is so expensive, is because we're paying for everybody, because the insurance company doesn't really know what we do, which I find kind of funny. It's kind of like my parents. I don't think my parents even still understand what I do, but
I think yeah, that is a problem.
Yeah, I have to explain it to my mom every time I see her.
I've had bosses actually ask me, what is it you do? I don't understand.
Well, I should mention that the Divisions Council is doing a value of planning initiative this year, and we're involved with it. And we thought it was more like a monetary value of planning, but the people who are in charge of the initiative want to make it to more directly address this concern that people need to know what planners do, and the initiative is going to talk about promoting planning at the high school level, secondary school level, so just to develop a broader understanding of the planning profession, and then that would lead up to what the private practice division is doing with the risk management guidelines and so forth, to make planners more fairly compensated in relation to peer professions. That's a little more than they want to bite off in this initiative, but I'm glad that doing it. And I see Mike has something to say, but before I do that, I want to ask Jeff. You're a sole proprietor. Doesn't that have certain risks that an LLC would not have?
I am an LLC as a sole
Okay.
proprietor. So, and Elena brought up, or Alana brought up the S-Corp. So that's something that I've just started to explore because I was like, wow, that's a lot of taxes I pay. But the S-Corp can help protect you from that. And then you can do some of those things where she talked about, like buy the car in the corporation's name, pay for the insurance out of that with a corporation, and then bring down some of those costs. You can also reduce some of the amount you pay on your 7.5% for employment tax, and so there's some advantages. It Once you get to a certain level, that S-Corp is doing that. So I'm looking at doing that. My friend that's an attorney is like, yeah, we could probably do that. And he's like, but you know what? You're probably better off just buying a subscription to Rocket Lawyer and just doing it that way because you just kind of fill out a form and it's a lot cheaper. So
yeah, and
there's
just
a
be
great
aware
resource.
that if you are looking into an S-Corp, you only have, I don't remember the exact time frame, but I think it might be like the first 45 days of every calendar year to file for that. So you don't have the whole year if you're looking at, so if you miss the mark and you don't do it till May, you might have to wait again till January. I think it has to do with the tax season, but I didn't have the S-Corp for probably the first 5 or 6 years, maybe more. And as soon as I went ahead and filed for that at the advice of a new CPA I had, it made a big difference on my tax liability. It was much lighter as an S-Corp.
And one more thing, Jeff, since you got your policy, and I can't. I think if you went back to your agent, you'd find that maybe you could get him to write a new policy for you that's based on a more developed understanding of what a planner does. Because we've been working with that guy, and I'm not supposed to say what premium he plans to charge, but it's probably more reasonable than what he asked when he didn't know as much about what planners do. Put it that way.
Yeah, I look forward to that. At least when I'm paying my taxes, I'm like, I know what this is kind of going towards it, and if I'm paying taxes, it means I made money, so that's a good thing. But then when I just feel like I'm pouring money into insurance, I'm like, this just feels like I'm enriching somebody, and I don't actually really need these services. I'm not not ever in 30 plus years been sued for something, but we will.
Yeah, as soon as the tape for that webinar comes out, I think we should make a general announcement because it's right up our alley, and anyone who is in this division, I think, would benefit from watching that webinar. Mike, you had your hand up.
No, I'm okay.
Oh, okay. All right. So Yeah, Mike has been working on value of planning stuff, and I meant to tell you before today what I just announced about the Divisions Council initiative. It's going to be good, but it's not going to be what we thought it would be.
Stephanie's got a
That'll come
question.
later. This is more like a warm up or an introductory act. But we
Stephanie's got
still
a
want
question,
planners to
Steve.
make more money, and we're still working in that direction. Stephanie,
Yeah, I've got a question about the benefits of forming an LLC. I've not incorporated in any fashion. I'm just a person doing this line of work. My tax liability is very low. I've actually been on disability since my 40s, and I'm 69 now. So my tax liability is very, very low. I usually pay my accountant more to prepare the taxes than I owe in taxes. So if that's any idea. Is there a benefit for me to go through the process of forming an LLC?
I believe there is, and it is exactly like it says. It's a limited liability, so it's a legal protection. Um, so should something go awry, and you would, be sued. Even the process of going through that obviously would be covered under your insurance. Hopefully, that can be very expensive and can bankrupt people. Just because if there's somebody big on the other end, they'll just string you out forever because that's one of the legal strategies they use. But the most important part is then they can't come after you personally and your personal assets. So you wouldn't be able to lose your house or your car or any of those types of things. And you could protect your personal assets under the LLC, and it would only be the assets under the LLC that would potentially be vulnerable.
yeah,
I see it the same way. And in Florida, it's less than $140 a year to file as an LLC. So I do recommend it for the same reasons. And also, then I'm a registered business in the state of Florida.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would caution against working as a sole proprietor just because of the exposure. My own experience. So we only got a few minutes left. Do you want to say anything, Jeff, as the chair of the
Robert's got
private
his hand up.
practice division? Or
Robert's got a question there.
oh, okay, Robert, I'm sorry, I missed you.
That's okay. Just a kind of quick follow-up on that filing or registering or however you want to call it for the LLCs. If you're keeping your business name the same, but just tacking on the LLC at the end, do you know if there's any changes to, say, your business license or your business register, your DBAs or anything like that as you become an LLC going forward?
You're in California, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. You'd have to probably check the California laws. I left LA and Sacramento a long time ago. So
Well, I'm a little bit north of LA, so I don't have to worry.
you're right in the middle.
Right in the middle.
You know, I was in the same category as Alara and doing business in Florida, and I never thought it was particularly hard. I mean, I thought it was pretty easy to set it up, and the tax advantages, I never had to go from one to the other. I had an accountant, who put me in a subchapter S LLC without me having to address it at all. So
I would just
never.
recommend that you definitely check in with your state business organization, whatever that is. For us, it's Sunbiz. And be wary of trying to hire someone to do it for you, because honestly, it takes me all of about 30 seconds to refile every year. You're just kind of affirming what's in there. And the original filing just requires articles of incorporation, which I think you can get off of the internet somewhere and just download and insert your information in to file, and create yourself as the manager of the LLC. And because when I don't file on time, we have a grace period until May something here in Florida, but if I don't file right in January, I get a load of emails saying, please let us help you. Please, we can do it for you, and charge me $400 when I can do it myself in 30 seconds for less than $140. So look into doing it yourself. There's really not a lot to it, at least in Florida. So that's my advice. Just see if you can do it yourself, or ask the state to help you, maybe guide you if you're having a hurdle or something. But articles of incorporation are probably the biggest thing that you'll need to file.
In general, I would echo what Jeff said about hiring someone to do your website. If you can get someone else to do something that you don't really know how to do, get them. Because by the time you figure out how to do it, you will have lost that many hours of billable time. And if there was a what I wish I knew, it would have been, hire people to do the grungy stuff, the surveys, traffic counts, whatever, so that you can save your budget for things that you're good at. Anyway, Laura, do you agree with that? I hope so.
Yeah, I did my first website myself on Wix. It wasn't anything amazing or spectacular, but it put me on. I don't know. I'm bad. I'm really bad about my website. It needs to be updated right now, but I don't track people who go to it. I don't look at that. I probably should, but I do need to get it updated. It's fairly old, and there's an error that pops up at the top, but it's not really how I get my business. I have probably, in the years that I've been had it up, I've probably gotten 3 or 4 contacts through my website. People just know me otherwise and refer me, so that's how I get most of my business.
My marketing is basically the same as yours, and I agree. I don't anticipate getting any leads through my website. It's or the other way around. When I have a lead, then having a website, they say, "Oh, now you're legit." So that's the piece that I have, and so mine's just 3 pages. In fact, mine's still under construction. It's supposed to be out by Christmas, and I think my wife, when she said Christmas, meant 2025, not 26. But I'm a little behind schedule because I've been doing real work that pays me. So
yeah, and okay, well, it's 3:59, and if we go past 4 o'clock, we start losing people because so it's not our fault that we cut everybody off at 4 o'clock. It's what
Corey did. Corey
by
put
popular demand.
Corey put the link to the private practice handbook in the chat there for anybody who wants that as well. So it is a great resource, and it was very helpful to me.
Thanks, Corey.
Okay.
Welcome.
Okay.
All right.
Well, yeah, we've got Vince. You got anything you want to add
No,
to
I
this?
just want to thank everybody for participating. Sorry I was a little late today, and thanks for pinch hitting. And unless anybody has any other questions, we'll wrap this up and call it a day.
Okay.
All right.
Well, have a good weekend, everyone.
Have a good weekend, everybody. We'll see
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thanks.
For sharing your wisdom.